Greetings, my lovelies, and thank you for stopping by today. Yeah, I kind of know it's been a hot minute since I've been around. Things have been kind of a little bit hectic since GalaxyCon, even though that was a total success, and now I'm in the process of planning a bunch of other things, so I'm really excited. But anyways, that's not what I'm here to talk about today. About a year ago, maybe, I had brought up and was in the process of planning a publishing/writing guide. Now this was going to be called the Chaotic Plantser because I myself am a plantser and I'm nothing if not slightly chaotic. So this guide was going to be a mix of writing help and publishing help, set up in a mix of descriptions of what it is that I do, a summary of the things that I've learned, input from other authors and other reference manuals that I've read with like examples that explain it in a way that makes sense to me, plus bullet journal style pages that you can use because I like bullet journals. Don't necessarily use them all that well. I get going for a while and then I forget and then I'm like, I'm too far gone, I might as well just wait till next year. However, when it comes to the writing portion of my bullet journals, like keeping track of my world and my characters and then my writing goals and my progress as I write, that I am really good at. So I finished it last year. I'm not gonna lie, I did finish it. It was complete. And then I sent it out to some betas, other authors, people who knew nothing about writing at all, to try and get to see kind of like how it worked, if it made sense, if it was lacking in certain areas, if the pages didn't seem usable, or should I just leave blank pages so that people can do what it is they want, you know, that type of thing. Important parts in the publishing process. Betas and getting feedback are always crucial. Long of the short is that there were some questions that still needed to be answered. And that's very typical in kind of how I write. I tend to be a bit of an underwriter and then I have to explain further. So I decided to completely scrap it and redo it 110% from the beginning, revising the pages that need to be revised and then writing the chapters in a way that would be beneficial for someone who has never written before. And I realized that the best way to go about this is to treat it like I was running the writing club for my students when I was a teacher. These kids had no idea how to write. They just knew that they had stories and didn't know how to take all their ideas and funnel it down into something that they could use. And so that's what I did. That did lead to a complete overhaul of some of the pages, and one of which I am going to talk about because I believe it really does need to have its own explanation a lot, and I realized that I'm going to do this whole new way for my characters all the time. Even though I've kind of already been doing it, I just never put it to paper. So let's take a look at the new character sheet. Now first and foremost, if you have ever played any type of tabletop game, primarily especially Dungeons & Dragons, this is going to look very similar to you. I run a campaign with some friends of mine from work. I also like to create characters for fun, and I actually have a project plan to where I am going to be writing an entire story based off of stats, so when I get stuck, I'm actually going to roll dice to solve that. And then that has kind of melded into it because personally, I don't like D&D's character sheet. It's very complicated. There's a lot of information that's kind of all over the place and it gets very confusing if you haven't played it for a very long time. And so I was like, well, I don't want that for a writing character because one, we don't need all that mess. And two, when you're playing your characters, a lot of it just needs to be kind of simplified and summarized because they are going to change a lot. Not necessarily like their stats or their backstories and things of that nature, but their arcs throughout the story are going to change, so most of the information on it is going to be stagnant. So to start off with, you're going to have a box that you can put an image of your character in. Now this can be commissioned art if you have already gotten that far in the process. Me, I like to use like the art breeder images, or I'll just go on Pinterest and like Google vague descriptive terms until I find a character that resembles closely to what my character is. It doesn't have to be 110% match, but it does have to be close enough to where like I can look at it and go, oh, that's my main character, or that's this character, and so on and so forth. The next section is where these 4 little rectangles are, and they're gonna be your positive traits, your negative traits, trauma, and goal. Now, all of your characters should have a mix of positive and negative traits. Those are very, very important. No one is perfect and no one is infallible. The trauma is like 50-50 because, in all honesty, they could not have any traumatic experiences in the beginning of the story, but as it progresses, they develop trauma, or they can kind of start out already with like some really hardcore shit that's happened to them in the past that's going to affect how they interact. Now, trauma can also give you positive and negative traits, but how you act to certain situations are really kind of drive that forward. And a little bit later on, once I get done describing, kind of briefly going over the sheet, then I will provide an example. The next one is the most important part, and that is the goal. What is it that your character wants to achieve? Are they just trying to survive? Are they trying to collect all the Pokemon and become the best Pokemaster? Are they trying to learn the ways of the Jedi? Do they just want to enjoy this world of being a wizard? You know, it's whatever their goal is. Try to have it figured out. The next big chunk is their bio. Now, you'll see that there's also a spot for a backstory. These two are completely different. And I made it that way for kind of ease of kind of comfort. Now, when you start writing a book, your first scene is always your opening sequence. It's your opening scene, it sets the stage, it gets everyone kind of in the frame of mind with the world, and it's how you set up the rules. That is what this bio is for. How is your character at the very start of the story? What are they like? Their age, some of the relationships, some of the things they are currently doing. This is their present. Backstory is obviously backstory, so you can go more full in depth with trauma, maybe list some of the dead people that they've had in their lives, yada yada yada. What is everything that's happened in the past that will have an effect on how they are currently? We're going to talk about the stats in a little bit, but the last little like jotty part is the notes. I'm a big brain dump person. I like to have spots for notes after I'm done initially planning a character. So that way, as things change, or as this will be really cool, then I can just jot that down and not lose them. So now we're going to talk about stats. To be honest, I almost trashed this part for the overall journal page, but the more I kind of thought about it and the more I looked at other kind of games or whatever and how they did it, I settled on a simpler method. So, and I cannot remember now for the life of me where I saw this, but as I was researching, someone said that they use a 10-point scale. So at max level 10, that's your kind of common everyday person, your Joe Schmo off the street. To 20 is people who have a bit more of an expertise in it. So these would maybe be like your skilled artisans or someone who has received some type of training for the situation. And then your last one is going to be 30, which is your masters. If your character is not already like a skilled soldier or assassin or princely person, you know, elf or whatever, they're most likely gonna reside in the area of 10. Modifiers are really gonna be dealer's choice here. I just put that there because I'm going to use this sheet for my dice roll book, as I've started to call it, because modifiers add or subtract the roll of the dice. And so quite simply, a 0 is going to be a -3, 1 to 2 is a -1, 3 to 4 is a -1, a 5, which is like right there in the middle, is a 0. You're not good, you're not bad, you just are what you are. 6, 7 plus 1, 8, 9 plus 2, and then a 10 is a +3. You can add that as well. Similar concept to the 20 and to the 30. Still seems kind of confusing, I know. And like I said earlier, using the stat numbers or the modifiers is purely like a dealer's choice. Part of the reason why I added it, not just for my dice roll book, was also to help you think about the particular skills that your characters may have and how good or bad may they actually be. So to put this in a bit of a perspective, we are going to take a well-known character, well at least I hope they're well-known, and we're going to add them to the sheet. And I chose Katniss, just simply because I was thinking about Rangers and she's like the quintessential Ranger, and so Dexterity was going to be her highest stat. And I need to pull this up. So for Katniss, her positive traits are she is determined, loyal to her friends and family, and very resilient. Her negative traits are she's very stubborn, she can be a bit naive, and equally harsh. She doesn't handle her emotions well. Trauma. Ooh, for her. There's, of course, poverty, living in the Hunger Games, the death of her father, the near starvation of her and her sister because her mom could not handle her own grief. There's a process of the parentification of herself because she is the sole provider on her family, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Her goal throughout the entire book, series, movie franchise, whatever, is always coming back to protecting her sister and keeping her safe. That's why she volunteers to go into the Hunger Games. She fights so that she can get out of the games to continue to provide for her sister, and then after that, all of her actions are just the care of her sister. She does everything for Prim. You can have major goals and minor goals in this section. However, I think the overall goal would probably be a better place to put this. Fill this in just simply because that is your character's main driving force. Bio, y'all should know how she is by now. She's 12 years old or 13 years old from District 12. All the list of stuff from her trauma. She's got a best friend named Gale, who's kind of an asshole. She's got a crush on the bread boy. Her backstory is also what feeds into her trauma, so I really don't feel like a need to kind of go into all of this. But now I'm going to talk about her stats, because I think that looking at this character that we already know and explaining kind of how I broke her stats down from a scale of 1 to 10 will kind of help clear up any misunderstanding. So we're going to start off with strength, and I gave her a score of 7 with this. Primarily because she is somewhat strong, like she can fight, she's somewhat physically healthy, but she tends to always be either underfed, so she's a little malnourished in that point. She always struggles when it comes to close combat. She's easily overpowered. She's very much aware of this fact. Even smaller characters can easily overpower her because she's not that strong. However, her dexterity, I gave it a 10, which is high. So she can easily shoot the bow, she can dodge things, she can run and climb and maneuver very quickly within the wider world. So she may not be strong, but she is nimble and agile. Intelligence and wisdom, I gave her a middling of 5, primarily because what she knows and how she applies it is very limited. She largely knows survivals and trap and hunting, and that she's very, very skilled in. But when it comes to the wider aspect of intelligence and wisdom, she struggles a bit. She doesn't think things all the way through, like giving up a month's portion of her food for the rest of her life. She didn't realize that would have damning consequences to the people that they gave it to. A lot of times she acts without thinking, speaks without thinking, and while that's great about her, that's not always the wisest thing, and it does tend to lead to some of her own problems where she can be impulsive or not even realize that something was an option. Next up is Constitution. Now, if you look at charts for D&D, Constitution is your ability to handle poison, but when it comes to psychic damage and stuff like that, that's also a Constitution. So I just kind of attributed it to your ability to handle things, primarily whether it's physical or your will. So when it comes to Katniss's Constitution, her mental capacity of being able to tolerate stuff, she's pretty strong in that aspect. She's able to have the mental resilience to find the solution to feed her sister and then keep fighting to get out of poverty. That is always where she's at. She's going to survive because she doesn't give herself really much any other options. Her charisma, or her ability to interact with people, is a 4. I'm sorry, my girl is awkward. She doesn't really necessarily like people as a whole. She's very suspicious, and she, a lot of times when she speaks too harshly, she's just like, I did not realize that was gonna hurt your feelings, but I also kind of don't care. And it's very rarely that she is able to succeed in swaying people verbally. She gets a couple here, it improves as the story progresses, but like in the beginning, book 1, nah, she has a hard time making that good impression. Especially like it's very clear in the movies. In the books, she tries, but she's not very good at it. So that's how you could use the stats, and you don't have to like use them in your actual writing process. It's more of just like, this is the thinking stage. So my character, how are they? How strong are they? Would they be like top of the skilled in their area, or would they lose a lot of fights, you know? And their backstories and their traits and their histories and all of that are going to go feed into what these kind of stats are. And a large reason why is just, I added it, was also to make sure that you not just say your character has faults, but actually equate a number to it. Like, okay, I have a character that sucks talking to people because she has a hard time. But then you always kind of let them do that, talk their way out of any situation, because you've kind of forgotten it. But if you keep referring to the sheet, you may not remember that you put down talks to people poorly or handles social situations poorly, but you can see charisma. Oh yeah, that's right, they suck. I got some pretty good feedback when I presented this to my betas and to other authors when I was talking to them about how to incorporate this, and they all seem to generally kind of like the idea. Again, when it comes to using any type of guide, you should only use what you deem necessary. If you don't want to use the stat feature, don't use the stat feature. But if you want to use it because you think it would be cool, and let's say you're writing a scene, you're not quite sure how it's going and you're stuck, you can be like, okay, well, this is what I was kind of thinking of them doing, but I don't know how that would work. And you roll the dice, and somehow they managed to pull it off. Of course, you know, you could always change your mind, but you can be like, that'd be fun. And then write them going through that, and then at the end they're going, I don't know how the hell I pulled that shit off. Which is funny and also kind of realistic in the general chaos of what life actually is. So if you think that this sheet might be something that would help you develop your characters, go on over to my website and sign up for my newsletter. It is free for the month of September. If you've happened to come across this video after the month of September, don't fret. There will be a free version linked at the bottom of it for the rest of 2024. If you're after that, I'm so sorry. Hopefully by then the Chaotic Planter will have been out and you can just buy the book and use it yourself. I digress. Either way, if you use it, please be sure to comment me on this video, or like tag me in any of my social medias, all listed down below, so that I can see how you use it. And I really do hope that it helps, because that's primarily why I developed it, for you guys. So anyways, I hope you all have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you all the next time. Bye!